So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the government essentially unlawfully scrapping children's rights and how horrible the not this conservative government, these conservative governments are towards the rights of children, especially vulnerable children. How despicable this government is, and these other ones. All three of them. Oh well, at least in this segment, we're going to be talking about two of them, Theresa May, and we're going to be talking about Boris Johnson. So England's Educational Secretary acted unlawfully in scrapping a string of legal protections for children in care, appeals court judges have ruled. They said Gavin Williamson should have consulted England's Children's Commissioner and other groups before scrapping 65 safeguards for children. The court said consulting such bodies would have been manifestly in the interest of vulnerable children. The government says it's disappointed by the ruling. It's disappointed that the courts have found them to be, found wanting in the fact that the government, instead of consulting various stakeholders in this, they said, no, we're not going to listen to you, we're not going to talk to you, we're going to do our own thing. So substantial changes. So Children's Rights Group Article 39 mounted the challenge against what is called a bonfire of children's rights after the government changed the rules safeguarding children through the Adoption and Children's Coronavirus Amendment regulations in April. Parliament did not debate the changes until after they were introduced in April. So what they did was, this government has snuck through this change before it was even voted on. And we'll talk in a minute about how conservative governments have successively tried to scrap children's rights. It might be because children can't vote, so the conservative government don't really care about children. That's what it seems like. And by the time these kids are able to vote, these politicians will be long gone. At least from the limelight, from the front bench anyways. So the legal challenge came after a lengthy battle between the government, peers, opposition MPs and children's rights groups over attempts to push through the changes which cover the rights to support children in care. The High Court previously ruled in the government's favour. So this is not, left-wing, ippy-dippy courts. These are, courts that, follow the rule of law here. The regulations affected included legal timescales for social worker visits to children care, six monthly reviews of children's welfare, independent scrutiny of children's homes, and senior officer oversight of adoption decision making for babies and children. So what you can see here is that the government has basically tried to scrap a load of rights when it comes to things like children adoption and things like that. And if we look here at the specifics in which the BBC didn't actually talk about, which is embarrassing for the BBC, absolutely embarrassing that this group here are the ones talking about, the National Youth Advocacy Group. So they said that changes in the legislation include an independent 6-month review for each child in care during COVID-19 no longer being mandatory. So every 6 months they check on the kid, probably talk to the kid and see what's going on, right? Get rid of that, right? Social workers no longer have to check in with children in care every 6 weeks, but instead should do so as reasonably practicable. So they're saying, when you can, 6 weeks now, maybe 6 months, 7 months. The requirement for an adoption or fostering panel has been removed. So a panel that would assess the child and assess the parents, the adoptees, that's been removed. Why? Decisions of whether foster placements are suitable are now based on the assessment of providers, many of whom are private organisations with a profit motive for placing children with carers, so they can get rid of, this result of the place that they're staying at, essentially. And a lot of these are becoming more private now. And so what they're saying is, we're going to get rid of these kids and we're going to get more kids in and more money and things like that. And that's what's happening here. Instead of, it being done by an independent panel of, care officials, it's being done by the care homes. It's just embarrassing stuff here. Absolutely shocking. And this is what we've seen from the government try and do successively. A bonfire of children's rights opposed, this was in 2017 under Theresa May. They had to U-turn on this. In 2017, very quickly, March, from January to March. And then we've got here another one from 2019. This is Theresa May again here. So this is talking about a government faces High Court action over children's rights. I don't know what's happened with this High Court action because this was filed last year. So forgive me for that, but discrepancies. And what's happened here is that because of the government's massive cuts to councils, the councils can no longer afford to look after children. So what they've said is they basically come to an agreement by the looks of things with the council, whether that's a formal agreement or an informal agreement, that certain checks don't have to be done because they don't have the money for these. And that's where legal problems can happen for councils. So that's when everything would blow up. Once the councils stop following the rules, the councils will point at the government for not giving the money, and that's where everything blows up. So instead of it getting to that point, what the government said is, you don't have to do these things, we're going to get rid of them. So discrepancies. It comes at a time when local authorities are struggling to pay for support for children in need of protection. This is pre-pandemic, by the way, February 2019. This is pre-pandemic, so that's how you know these problems have been going on for a long time. So it comes at a time when local authorities are struggling to pay for support for children in need of protection, with a predicted $2 billion shortfall in children's services budgets by 2020. I can't imagine how bad it would be now. Release from some of these duties may save them money in the short term, but campaigners say there are important statutory protections which cover some of the most vulnerable children in society, and the government calls these things myths. These are childcare myths, that's why they want to get rid of them. Absolutely shocking stuff. Last year, 50 organisers and social experts wrote to Children's Minister Nadeem Zahawi with a detailed analysis of discrepancies between the guide and statutory protections. They asked him to withdraw the guide, but he refused, saying neither the legislation nor the statutory guidance has changed. Director of Article 39, Caroline Willow, said the document overrides key obligations within our children's social care system, which were crafted over many years and subject to detailed public consultations. The protections the guide presents are mythical. Exist in our legislation and statutory guidance because of the real need of children and young people. So this Conservative former minister, I think he is, Nadeem Zahawi, saying these are all myths, blah blah blah. This is the new guide, but you've got this person here, Caroline Willow, saying that these aren't myths, these are real things that it's taken years to craft the legislation over. But you got these absolutely. It's very hard. I'm running out of words to describe this Conservative government or any other Conservative government. They're just awful human beings, to be honest. Subhuman. She added that nothing in the guidance was about giving children more support. Legal experts at Simpson Miller, acting on behalf of the charity, lodged the High Court action this week. It seeks to have the guidance quashed and removed from circulation. So what you have here is successive governments trying to change the rules around adoption and things like that for vulnerable children, right, and checks on vulnerable children, right? They've been trying to do this since 2017, and what Gavin Williamson did here, this is a guy who was sacked over leaking, classified information about Huawei, just in case anyone was unaware of that. What he's done is, under guise of COVID, he snuck this information, these changes in, right? If we can find it, he snuck these regulations in April, and then they voted on it later on. That's the kind of guy this man is, and that's the kind of people these conservative governments are. It's not just Boris Johnson, it's Theresa May, it's David Cameron. Never forget, even if Boris Johnson's gone next year, never forget that the person who comes after him is going to be the same. It's an ideology. It's not one person believing this, it's the entire party that's infected by this. And, next time out in the election, I hope people come out and vote. I hope Starmer's the guy, because this sort of stuff here is scummy behaviour, not protecting vulnerable kids. It took Rashford months of work to get the government to do the right thing when it came to free school meals. Imagine now this government not helping vulnerable children, and these children may be adopted without these panels and things like that. These children may have been adopted into homes that weren't suitable, to parents who are maybe not the best parents who don't look after their kids properly. Who knows? But what I do know is I'm glad the courts have quashed this. The BBC's, this is not the best article from the BBC here, but the National Youth Advocacy Group, stating that, it's clear that the government tried to get rid of the 6-month review, also a 6-week review, a 6-week check-in, that had to be done, reasonably practical. So whenever you can be asked, really. And what we can also see is that the government have done this because of all the budget cuts that they've made. They don't care about vulnerable children. In fact, I would stretch to say they don't care about the average child. This is a hydra. You can't get rid of one person and expect the thing to be defeated. That's how conservative governments are. So Starmer, step up and start talking about this stuff. Mr. Human Rights Lawyer, start talking about this stuff. When was this article from? It's only from a few days ago. It was 3 days ago. It's fresh. Starmer, bring this up in PMQs. Do something. Do something about this. Mr. Human Rights Lawyer. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.